all of Greek mythology, there was exactly one goddess that even the mighty Olympians treated with extreme, almost paranoid caution. And no, we're not talking about Athena, Ares, or even Hades, the lord of the underworld. We are talking about Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft, of the crossroads, of ghosts, and of forbidden rituals. Our explainer today is going to uncover a mythological mystery that is just as fascinating as it is dark. We're going to figure out exactly why the ruler of Olympus, a god who literally overthrew his own father and defeated massive monsters, lived in awe, and honestly, probably terror, of a goddess of shadows. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. It might sound a bit funny to imagine Zeus, the undisputed king of the gods, looking totally terrified, but this represents a very real dynamic in ancient Greek storytelling. See, before the Olympians ruled the world, and way before Zeus even took his throne, Hecate was already there. When Zeus finally came to power, he notoriously destroyed or imprisoned the older generation of gods, the Titans. But he didn't lay a finger on Hecate. In fact, ancient stories tell us he actively honored her and let her keep absolutely all of her powers. He even went so far as to grant her an unheard-of level of authority, supreme dominion over the heavens, the earth, and the sea. So this brings us to a massive question, and I really want you to think about this for a second. What could possibly terrify the king of Olympus? Seriously, this is a god who wields lightning and thunder like personal toys. He commands the entire Olympian army. He defeated Typhon, literally the most fearsome monster in all of Greek mythology. What kind of force could make someone with that much ultimate destructive power step back and say, you know what? No, I'm going to leave her alone. Well, the answer lies in the specific nature of what Hecate represented, and it goes far, far beyond physical strength or magical weapons.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at where she came from. Hecate was born from the Titans Perses and Asteria. This means she belonged to a super ancient generation of divine beings, ones that were intimately tied to the night, the stars, hidden knowledge, and ancient magic. Basically, she was fundamentally older than most of the gods up on Olympus. Her surviving the Great War between the Titans and the Olympians proves that her power wasn't just about who could hit the hardest. Her connection to the very fabric of the cosmos made her a foundational force of the universe itself. She was baked into reality.
So, the crucial point here is that Hecate's true power wasn't brute strength at all. It was forbidden knowledge. She ruled over spirits and ghosts, the dark art of necromancy, curses, the phases of the moon, and perhaps most importantly, the boundary between life and death. The ancient Greeks believed she walked completely freely between all these different worlds, and that was a huge deal. It was something even the most powerful Olympian gods really struggled to do. They were totally bound to their domains, you know? Zeus to the sky, Poseidon to the sea, but Hecate? She could just slip right through the cracks of reality itself.
This sets up a truly striking contrast. It's basically a matchup of brute force versus ancient magic. On one side, you have Zeus. His domain is totally tangible. He rules the sky, he throws thunderbolts, he physically smashes monsters. But on the other side, you have Hecate. She's connected to fate, death, and dark magic. And here's the thing. The Olympian gods were absolutely terrified of beings connected to fate and prophecy, because those powers exist completely beyond brute force. Even Zeus can defeat a physical monster, sure, but you cannot conquer destiny, you cannot punch death, you cannot throw a lightning bolt at dark magic. Those powers can only be avoided. And that right there is exactly why she was respected instead of challenged. Now, I want to completely shift gears for a minute and put you directly into the shoes of an ancient Greek traveler, just to really feel this fear. Imagine you're walking alone at night. There are no streetlights, obviously, just the dark wilderness and the pale light of the moon. Ahead of you, you approach a three-way crossroads. To the ancient Greeks, these intersections were incredibly sacred to Hecate. They firmly believed these weren't just dirt paths crossing. They were literal places where realities overlapped. They were spaces between choices, between worlds, and directly between the living and the dead. Standing there after sunset, that was considered dangerously foolish.
But if you absolutely had to travel through one, or if you needed to interact with the crossroads, ancient travelers had very, very specific instructions on how to survive the encounter. First, you'd wait for sunset. Then, you would leave offerings specifically known as Hecate's suppers. We're not talking gold or jewels here, but everyday items with deep ritual significance. Garlic, eggs, cakes, fish, and wine. You'd place these down to appease the goddess and the hungry spirits that traveled with her. And then comes the absolute most important step of all. You simply walk away.
And you'd want to walk away quickly, because her arrival was not something you wanted to stick around for. Ancient legends described Hecate not as wandering alone, but arriving surrounded by terrifying entities. She'd carry flaming torches to cut through the absolute darkness, with ghostly spirits swirling all around her. And most notoriously, she was accompanied by her black dogs. The ancients claimed that if you were walking at night and suddenly heard dogs violently barking at a completely empty, quiet street, well, it wasn't a stray. It meant Hecate was physically drawing near to you. It was so terrifying that even high priests would completely avoid speaking her name carelessly once the sun went down. Now, what's really fascinating about her mythology is her title as the Keeper of the Keys. Hecate wasn't just a wanderer. She unlocked things. These keys symbolize her ultimate access to hidden realms and secret, forbidden knowledge. To give you an idea of just how deep her access went, some of the oldest myths suggest that when Hades abducted Persephone, dragging her deep down into the underworld, it was actually Hecate who used her torches and her keys to guide Demeter through the dark to find her. She knew the absolute deepest secrets of the underworld. And, as we all know, secrets are power.
Because she held these literal and metaphorical keys, ancient followers would actually try to harness her power through some incredibly dangerous rituals. These were primarily performed at night, especially under the new moon, when the sky was pitch black and the Greeks believed the veil between the living and the dead was at its absolute thinnest. These rituals were intense, guys. We're talking burning torches, loud chanting, thick incense, using keys, and sometimes even having black dogs serve as guardians for the ritual circle. Practitioners would make these offerings, sometimes begging for protection and other times asking for brutal revenge or demanding hidden knowledge of the future through dreams.
But engaging with her was seriously perilous. Many ancient statues and carvings represented Hecate with 3 distinct faces, one looking forward, one looking left, and one looking right. This was a literal representation of her domain over the 3-way crossroads. It meant she was constantly watching every single direction simultaneously. Literally nothing could sneak up on her, and absolutely nothing could hide from her gaze. Talk about having eyes in the back of your head, right?
But this three-faced gaze has a much more unsettling meaning for our interactive journey today. She wasn't just passively watching the physical dirt roads intersect. She was watching the crossroads of your life. She was watching your choices. She was watching you. Ancient writers constantly warned that Hecate rituals were exceptionally dangerous, and actually, it wasn't necessarily because Hecate was purely evil, but because her domain touched cosmic forces that fragile human beings were simply never meant to control. The deeper you delved into her ancient mysteries, the harder it became to ever return to your normal life unchanged.
Which brings us right back to that dark crossroads, and the absolute most terrifying rule of all when you leave your offering of garlic and wine. Never look back after leaving the offering. It was a deeply held belief that when you placed your supper down, Hecate and her trailing horde of restless spirits would immediately gather right behind you to consume it. If you turned your head, if her spirits noticed you watching them in the dark, you broke that sacred boundary. And if you broke the boundary, well, they might just decide to follow you all the way home.
So, in a mythology completely packed with brawling gods who fought massive wars and threw lightning bolts all day long, it was the quiet, shadowy presence of Hecate that demanded the absolute most respect. Even Zeus understood that there are ancient powers hidden deep in the darkness that should literally never be underestimated or challenged. She didn't need grand armies, she just needed the night. So I'll leave you with this final thought for our explainer today. The next time you hear dogs frantically barking in the distance late at night and you find yourself passing a lonely crossroads, will you look behind you? Let us know what you think, and as always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown.